Welcome to the show. Avoidance Sports Talk up and rolling on a Wednesday, which is usually mailbag day, but we had a Marcus Freeman press conference today. So we've got plenty of comments from Marcus Freeman, along with Trevor Trowbridge, Sean Stiers. Welcome back. It's been a while.
It has been. Feels like forever since I've been in a show. It's been about 9 minutes.
Well, not for you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I do have a little beef though that I've got to get off my chest before we start this up. You know, I'm sitting here, I'm getting ready to start the show. All of a sudden I get this email from the HR department. Someone's filed a complaint, and the complaint, it just says rapid fire. What's up with that?
Oh man,
you would it.
No, I have no idea where that email would have came from, man. But I'm looking forward to a great show with you this evening.
Brian just called me before the show started, and he said that you guys were talking about you coming on and doing double duty, and I do appreciate you doing double duty. Both Vince and Jesse have conflicts, but Jesse will be stepping back in for rapid fire. And knowing that you were going to do, you know, you did close to 4 hours with Brian this afternoon. I was trying to save you doing a full show. So that's why I was like, Jess, can you still do rapid fire? So Jesse's doing rapid fire. But I mean, let's be honest, all anyone wants to do when they come on the show is rapid fire, it seems like.
Well, hey, man, I come on the show to do shows with Sean Stiers. So
That's it. You're playing it politically. I could put you up at the podium and you could be a football coach and you could just dance around all the time.
Maybe someday. Maybe someday, man. But
right.
Happy to be on here.
That's right. All right. Well, again, glad to have you back. And Jesse will be in doing a little rapid fire, but we're going to talk quarterbacks, which obviously seem to be the hot topic of conversation. No surprise at Marcus Freeman's press conference today. I wouldn't say a majority of the questions, but of the questions asked, quarterback took up more airspace than any other topic. It was the topic du jour, which, you know, again, I was a little surprised that if Steve Angeli's name came up, it was really more in passing just once, it feels like, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely thought there was going to be more questions about that, what went into that decision. Honestly, because I listened to the entire thing, I thought there was going to be more questions maybe about the wide receiver room. I thought there might be more questions about Chris Ash, but kind of figured that quarterback talk would take up a lot of it.
Yeah, and we kind of a lot fewer questions than normal we were able to ask. They kind of cut it off a little bit early. Didn't go a full 30 minutes. I think it was, you know, maybe close to 27, 28 minutes or something like that. But in any case, we got plenty to chew on from the quarterback, because the first question that Marcus Freeman did get about the quarterbacks was really 6 questions mashed into one when it was all said and done. But the main thing, it was the gist of it was about his conversations with CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey amidst the departure of Steve Angeli. So here's what Marcus Freeman said.
As far as the Kenny and CJ, you know, again, both we believe have the ability to be the starting quarterback. Both have done a tremendous job in improving through spring practice. Like every single quarterback has improved, and it was awesome to see. It's just tough when you have limited reps to truly say somebody separated themselves. You know, there was certain days they would get 12 team reps each. It's not many, you know, and that's probably why I said it's hard to have a true 3 quarterback battle in fall camp. There's just not enough reps to go around, and you know, both of them. It's going to be great because, you know, you talk about 2 guys that don't have much, if any, real game experience, and the thing you can create when you have a competition, a true competition where it's 50-50, you guys are going to battle it out, is you try to put some of that pressure that a real game presents, and you have to perform in practice, because you understand if you don't perform consistently, that other guy's pretty good and he might, you know, take off with this race. And so I'm pleased that we're going to have a true competition as we begin fall camp. and try to create some pressure situations for those guys that they have to perform, so that the first time they feel that pressure isn't going to be when we play Miami, Florida.
Well, I mean, he didn't get into necessarily what he talked to them about, which was kind of how the question was posed there, Trevor. But I mean, I think we can like listening to him. I think we can all agree that like, as he said, you needed a 2-quarterback battle and not a 3-man quarterback battle at the start of fall training camp.
Yeah, a lot of the conversation, I'm inferring a little bit here, but a lot of the conversation just had to be around, look, spring, it was about making the cut. And now from summer to fall, it's about, are you the guy?
Yeah.
And some of his comments about, look, this is what the competition is going to be now. There's more reps that we can share equivalently amongst you two. And that had to have been what a lot of that conversation was. That, and then just expectations moving forward. We talked about before, going into spring, when you have an open quarterback competition like this, every quarterback along the way has to be, one, communicated with properly to know what each practice is going to look like. But two, at the end of the spring, everybody has to have a good idea or know where they stand and what their internal pecking order is.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of those conversations were had.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, it's been almost a week now since Steve Angeli put his name into the transfer portal, and looks like he's got his destination picked out. We'll find that out, I guess maybe officially sooner or later. But, I think the other aspect of this is not just you want it to be a 2-man battle so that it's easier for the coaches to evaluate. But, to his point, like these guys are also now going to be getting more reps and a chance to, to continue to develop and elevate their game just because of the fact that they're going to be getting more reps. And, like even this summer, even though they're not official practices over the course of the summer, when they're out there, one, they're doing their conditioning, but two, they're out there with wide receivers and running backs and throwing the ball and doing different stuff with them. It's just that much more opportunity for all of those guys to get familiar with each other.
Oh, yeah. Even when you start talking about divvying up reps, I mean, you saw it, I saw it, Brian and Vince saw it when we go to practices. Offense was running relatively with a skeleton crew, man. And now when you start talking about divvying up reps between splitting it with the ones and, between ones and twos, your twos going into the summer and fall is going to look significantly different than what it looked like this season. You think about the players that each quarterback is going to throw the ball to. The ones this past offseason was – Jaden Greathouse, Jordan Faison when he was there and not doing lacrosse, and Will Pauling at 75%. Going into the fall, your ones are you're throwing to Malachi Fields, Jaden Greathouse, Eli Raridan, and now your twos are Cam Williams and Will Pauling and Ty Washington, James Flanagan, all guys that are going to be a part of it. So I think it'll also be a better evaluation tool moving forward now that it's narrowed down to 2.
I mean, he talked about putting them in pressure situations in practice. Do you think that they'll be able to simulate that enough? Like will that be enough to put them in those kind of situations?
To a degree, I think so. I think it's just going to be more of a realistic look of what they're going to be getting on defense, maybe not necessarily like the environment or the pressure of the situation. I mean, when you're going up against a defense like Notre Dame's in practice, when it is true best on best, converting a 3rd and 3 is, that's a pretty realistic look to what you're going to be getting on Saturdays. But to a degree, sure. You can always simulate crowd noise. And as much of a hot topic of conversation as I know it is for some people, you can't really simulate weather. But believe it or not, it does still get hot up in northern Indiana.
Oh, man. Is that going to be a thing? Are we going to have to talk about Miami, like South Florida heat, and all that? Like, Are they going to melt in the South Florida heat like they were going to melt in Texas last year?
Yeah. Well, it'll probably be coming down the barrel, but probably not until August. But those questions will get asked. Yeah. I guarantee it.
They do a lot of different things with the crowd noise and all that, and that's something. Again, they pump it in and they all that stuff. I think putting them in, like, okay, it's 3rd and 10. How are you going to respond on 3rd and 10? 2-minute drill, all those different kind of things. I think that at the very least, a game is always going to be a game, and it's always going to be a little bit different, but there's also that muscle memory that kicks in if you do that enough times in practice. Like I go back to, like I've talked before about having different wrestling coaches in high school, and the best one that we had, like we were always doing, like, okay, there's 15 seconds on the clock. You're on the bottom. You got to get out. You got to get an escape. You got to do, or you're on your feet, it's a tie match, and like going live and doing those kind of things. And when you do that enough in practice, again, even though you're still simulating what's happening in a game, you do that enough in practice, it kicks in when the real thing actually comes in, and it does just become muscle memory. So I think that they're, like putting them in specific situations like that, you can gain a lot. But to your point, like crowd noise, weather, all those different things, those are just things that you can't fully simulate, like being in, in front of a stadium of 60,000 plus.
Well, I think that's what makes this quarterback battle so intriguing, because for the first time in a while at Notre Dame, really the last time that there was a situation was 2022. But even then, Tyler Buchner in 21 played a lot of reps as a true freshman in different types of environments. You go back and think Jack Cohn had a lot of experience at 21. And then obviously Sam Hartman and Riley Leonard had a lot of experience when they came in. So there's going to be lessons that not only we as fans learn, but the coaching staff is also going to learn about these kids on August 31st. But I think now the setting of this quarterback battle is going to be more so, who can do it at the most consistent level in these pressure situations that we're going to try to simulate the best in practice. And then once game day hits, when August 31st gets here, you're really going to know when you get thrown into it, because neither of these quarterbacks have taken a meaningful snap in college football. I think that's what makes it so fun.
I am Tenzin welcoming USMA 87 to the show, his favorite West Point grad, and USMA just wants to hear me say it. I mean, of course. Like, what else? I don't know that we have that many, other West Point grads in the show, to be quite honest, but welcome one and all. It doesn't matter where you went. Joe wants to know if we think that these guys are really neck and neck in this competition.
At this point, having no conversations with people inside of the program.
It's his birthday. Happy birthday, USMA 87. I missed that part. Sorry. That was
no worries.
I skipped past the headline there. I buried the lead. Happy birthday, USMA 87. 60 today.
The big 6-0. Big 6-0. Happy birthday.
Right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're all good, man. Having no conversations with people inside of the program, I believe that they do. I think that Marcus Freeman has held true to his word, and he's letting the players dictate when a starter is going to be named. He said it multiple times throughout the spring. It's like, look, I don't want to put a deadline on this because I don't want to either force the issue or I don't want to create some sort of narrative in that room. And I do think that if CJ and or Kenny emerged as just the clear-cut guy, I think they would have named him. I think each player, we broke this down, Brian and I did in yesterday's afternoon show, about just what each quarterback brings to the table. And it's different enough to where I think it is truly neck and neck. And they're going to let, summer and ideally the first part of fall camp dictate, okay, who is starting to separate themselves in a margin that is really small.
Right.
So I do believe it is neck and neck.
I'll go ahead and just play this clip, because Freeman was also asked if he was ever close to naming a starter this spring, and as opposed to letting it go into the summer and into fall training camp.
I was never, if one person clearly showed that he was going to be the only answer to making sure we had the most opportunity to have success, we would have named one. But again, we had three guys that were performing really, really well over 14 practices, done a really good job. We will continue the competition now with two guys as we move forward. But was never put into a situation where I felt like we needed to do that, right? Because a guy clearly showed that he was going to be the guy to give our offense the best chance to have success.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they really felt like one of them was the guy, maybe they would do it. I really don't think, especially with two, because look, we've gone around and around about the experience factor and all that kind of stuff. in this whole thing. Obviously, the two guys who are left standing are the two who are less experienced than the one who left. And so I think that you had to be fair to everybody in this whole thing and let the thing play out over the course of the entire spring, because you do have a guy who put 3 years into your program, and you've got another guy who's going on his third year in the program versus the other guy who's been here a year now at this point. So I'm not surprised, that is Marcus Freeman's response. I don't think you're probably very surprised by it either.
No, it's in the spring, it was very much expected that they had to let things play out the way that it played out. Because fact of the matter, yes, Steve Angeli had the most experience, but it was still limited experience. It's not like any quarterback came into this with a significant edge in game over the other one. But if you had to name a person that did, it was Steve Angeli. But it was arguably the lowest ceiling guy in the room. And so I'm happy the way that they conducted the quarterback battle this offseason so far throughout the spring. And they just let the play on the field dictate it. But like I said before, like Coach Freeman said in his press conference, it was, look, if somebody did emerge as just a clear-cut guy, then I think he would have been named, but none had yet. And
I think it was going to be hard for anyone to clearly emerge because of the fact that you were splitting reps three ways. And as he said it, there were some practices where, and we'll hear that here in just a minute, there were some practices where literally it's like, one guy's getting 12 reps, because of the fact that you had to split it three ways. There was always going to be somebody kind of getting the short end of the straw. And I don't think that would have been fair to anybody if you were going to make a decision this soon. And I think that for the program, the team, and those guys, this had to be something that played into the fall. But the question now is how long do you think it could go into fall before they ultimately name a starter?
I don't want to stick with my political answers that I started the show out with, but I mean, honestly, as long as it takes. Now, ideally, if there's 25 fall practices, like 25 practices in fall camp, something like that.
Along those, in that ballpark,
and this is just a personal preference, ideally they have an idea like halfway through fall camp, because I would want whoever that starter is going to be to then have enough time to prepare as the starter. But if the competition dictates that we literally just can't right now, and that could mean one of two things. They're either just playing at such a high level that it's a tough decision, or they're both playing at a meh level and they're not ready to name a starter yet either. But ideally for me, if I were the head coach at Notre Dame, I know he doesn't want to put a timeline on it, but ideally I have it whittled down to a starter halfway to 3/4 of the way through fall camp. So then I have multiple weeks and multiple practices to prep one of CJ or Kenny as the guy.
Yeah. I mean, like you were a quarterback. When you would did you ever go into the season where you were the guy where, when a season was starting, was it were you in a full-blown competition, at the, when practice started? I realize it's a little bit different because in high school, you've got you're actually allowed to get out there and do stuff in shorts and t-shirts, as a team before actual practice even begins in August. Whereas, in college, it's a little bit more restrictive. Again, they're able to get out there and do stuff. So I don't know, when you were going through those competitions, how long did you feel like it had to go before one way or another, everyone really, maybe felt comfortable with who it was, if the competition was close?
Well, it's funny that you bring that up. My junior season, I beat out a senior who was coming back, and we battled all through the offseason, and then I was named the starter. Unfortunately, I was named the starter on the bus ride over to the game. No joke. And that's the high school coaching that we had. It's a different conversation for a different day. It was a whole lot. But yeah, I found out, we sat together on the bus. It was me and the senior, and our head coach turned around and he looked at us. He's like, "Hey, Trev, you're gonna go today."
So he wouldn't make the decision until literally right down to
literally
12th
the day
hour.
of the game. Yep. And then
Wow.
senior season, it was just my senior. It was just me, and then like a sophomore and a freshman.
Okay.
And so then that entire offseason, I got to prepare as the guy, and having either, it was one of those where my junior season, when I was in competition with the older kid, the team knew, I knew that I was going to go, but I was never officially told that it was going to be me until Friday night at 5:15 p.m. We kicked off at 7.
Wow.
And so, that
how do you mentally prepare to be ready with like an hour and 45 minutes notice?
The entire week, I just had to prepare like it was going to be me, if I'm being honest with you. But
Yeah.
I mean, it was tough, because then again, in the back of your mind, you have that little voice of like, is it? Like, are you going to be the guy?
Right.
And so that was, man, let me tell you, I don't know if that was some sort of psychological thing that he was.
That's a little
trying to
bit
work
different.
out.
I can guarantee you Marcus Freeman's not going to let this go to that point where like it's going to be the eve of Miami and they're going to
I sure would hope not
name a starting quarterback. I feel like the longest it should probably go into camp is about 2 weeks. Like if they feel like it gets to that point, where Marcus Freeman has been in the past when we've had these things happen. Now, granted, it's only happened a couple times. I mean, basically by the end of the first week of camp, they've named somebody. Like this feels a little bit different because for the most part, with the exception of Buchner and Pine, like they've had guys who have had noticeably more experience. And, like you could kind of say it was a competition, but how much of a competition was it really? I guess where, the kind of the X factor in this whole thing is, does one guy, sort of separate himself over the course of the summer, with whatever he's doing, with the preparation and all the different things that he's doing over the course of the summer, once training camp actually begins.
Yeah, very true. I mean, when you're in a quarterback battle that's this neck and neck, everything is up for evaluation. And so I don't know if they have a perceived pecking order from the things that Brian has said in previous shows. It doesn't sound like that they have, or at least that they're telling us, this is the guy that's number 1. Here's the guy that's number 2. Let's go into fall camp and battle. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds, man.
Yeah, and I mean, it really feels like Marcus Freeman has always preached since day one that he wants competition. He wants guys competing for spots, and it's going to make each of them better. It's going to make the team better ultimately. Just take the offensive line as an example. Last year, with all the injuries they had in the offensive line, it was very competitive for spots. Things changed over the course of training camp, and I think that ultimately those competitions during camp for those different spots help prepare those the number 2 guys to be able to step in and do their jobs when their numbers were called. So, but again, I don't think you can go too much past kind of that midway point of training camp, because it is going to be a first-time starter no matter what. And I think that whoever it ends up being winning the number 1 spot is going to need that extra time to really be with Gino Guidugli and Mike Denbrock and, putting a plan together and just, knowing that he's the guy and getting those extra reps that you're going to get just by being the number 1 guy at the end of camp.
Well, I think to your point, Sean, they're 2 different kinds of quarterbacks. It's not like they both have the same skill sets. Kenny brings some things to the table that CJ might not, and CJ brings things to the table that Kenny might not. We broke that down yesterday. You're probably going to see a deeper read progression on offense with a guy like CJ. You're probably going to see a little bit more use of the legs with a guy like Kenny. You might see a few more deep shots with a guy like Kenny. And so for those reasons, to your point about, Gino Guidugli needs time to formulate a game plan. Mike Denbrock needs time to sit down with that. I think that's all the more reason where I wouldn't let it go too much farther into fall camp. But again, if the competition dictates that it needs to, then so be it.
That's true. If it is neck and neck. But the other part of that is typically a guy, starts to emerge and everyone kind of knows, who the guy should be. Andrew says Angeli probably feels shorted on his opportunity, but those are the breaks. And I mean, I guarantee you he feels shorted. by the opportunity because of the experience that he's had and because of, how long, how much time that he's put into the program. But as we've said over and over again, it's not about how much time you invest. Marcus, there was at some point, I can't remember if it was in one of the clips I don't think it was specifically about the quarterbacks, but I think it was in his opening statement. He was talking about, look, sometimes you put in all the work in the world and it just doesn't work out for you. Like you can work hard, you can do all the right things, but ultimately it doesn't work out. And that's why these players are fortunate. There's a transfer portal, didn't work out. You still have other opportunities. You don't just have to stay here and stick it out now.
Well, and every quarterback could stake that claim. I know Angeli's the one that transferred, but who knows? Again, I don't know this for sure, but CJ or Kenny could have very well said, man, if I had more reps this spring, I could have shown that I was the clear-cut guy going into the summer. I get where you're coming from because Angeli's been with the program the longest. Like I can sympathize with that, but again, the situation was what it was, man.
Yep. Brian, who was beating up on Tyler Buchner earlier this week, says he's so tired of the Minchey has a chance talk. As crazy as it sounds, he hopes Buchner beats him out. Ouch! Come on, rally, Brian.
Okay,
we'll come back to Buchner in just a second, but could there be a 1A, 1B situation, and could there be a package for the guy who doesn't win the starting job? This is interesting. We were talking about this before the show starts, so I'm looking forward to jumping into this now.
Yeah, I could see us, utilizing two quarterbacks in different situations, but we're going to have a starter, and then you'll have a guy that might can help our football team win games, and if that means we have a special package for a guy, we will. But I'm not a huge proponent of having truly two starters. But that decision is going to be made when they help us make that decision, right? And I don't ever want to put a timetable on that, right? And let's hope that it's before the first game. But at the end of the day, I believe there has to be one guy that is the starting quarterback.
I believe in that response that Marcus Freeman gave to the question. I don't know about you. The last thing I wanted to see, Trevor, was a Deshaun Kaiser, Malik Zaire situation like we saw in 2016 that did nobody any good. And it's not surprising to me that the season that began with that ended up the way that it did. There's no part of me wanted to see, we've got whatever you want to call it, 1A, 1B type thing.
Yeah, man. Because no matter what, it goes back to what we said earlier there are two different styles of quarterback. They're both high ceiling kids, but they do things differently than the other one. And that's how it was with Malik and Deshaun. Part of the issue was Malik was being asked to run Deshaun's style of offense. And that's kind of what created the divisiveness within the offense. Look, I have always been a huge believer in in a one quarterback system. I don't like it. Like, having played the position, I like to get into a rhythm, and it's really hard to do that when that there's just going to be moments in the game that you're not in, and so I think that's tough. I think it's a smart decision to go with just having a guy. It's not a situation where, in 2021, Tyler Buchner would come in and run some situational package plays. And Jack Cohen was a stiff in the backfield. He was he's just not, he wasn't a mobile guy. Yeah. The running back room wasn't as deep as what it was as it is right now in 2021. So you had a guy like Tyler Buchner come in and have something for him. But the way that the team is put together now, I don't see the need to do it.
No, so you're saying you don't even want a package quarterback. You don't so you would not even favor what you were just referencing there with Kenny Minchey coming in, red zone potentially, that kind of thing, again, that's under the assumption that it's CJ Carr. But to me, because this is what we were talking about. When you asked that question about a package quarterback, and we were kind of I don't know about you, but I was looking at the look on Marcus Freeman's face as the question was being asked. And, like, you're kind of saying, if you're asking about a package quarterback, it really feels like, you're conceding the fact that CJ Carr is going to be the guy, because there's not even a situation. Like, at least you can come up with scenarios where it would make sense for Kenny Minchey because of the fact that he is a little bit more mobile and could do some things, with his legs. But there's really, like, if it's the other way around and Minchey is the number one, there's really no situation where it makes sense to go to CJ Carr in that instance.
Right. Like, what would the CJ Carr package on offense be? It would just be the offense, and so that's why Marcus Freeman's answer was tailored the way that it was, because he's not going to, he's like, yeah, we have some packages planned for who the backup is going to be. It's like, okay, well, then let's use some inferences here. Kenny Minchey's more the mobile guy. He's a thicker bodied guy. He'd probably use him in some run packages. Whereas I don't know what the CJ Carr package would be. And so it would basically, to your point, be like him naming a starter without officially naming a starter.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I think I don't mind, if it's CJ Carr, I don't mind potentially, like a Minchey package, but at the same time, I mean, based on what we've seen of CJ Carr, just, as a quarterback, his ability to make reads, his ball placement, and all those things, if he wins the starting job, it really feels like you're going to want those things in the red zone. And, like, you don't necessarily need just a quarterback who's a little bit better runner in the red zone in that instance. You would just want the guy who's the best passer, who, by the way, is not a liability as a runner. No, he's not a true dual threat quarterback. He's more a pro style quarterback, but he's not a liability as a runner either. Like, he can do some, some different zone read things and that kind of thing, and still be able to make plays with his legs if he's called upon.
Exactly. And I think that for that reason, it's probably the biggest one why I don't believe that there should be a package for a multitude of different reasons. Look, there's nothing that Kenny Minchey can do with his legs that Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and Kedron Young, and Nolan James, or Aeneas Williams, or Jabron Payne can. You know what I mean? Like, there'd be nothing that dictates he has to be the one to do. He's not Riley Leonard, where he was 6'4", 220 pounds, and it's nothing like that. But then in the same light, there's nothing that CJ can't do with his arm in the red zone that Kenny can't. So that nothing would dictate it as such from a football team standpoint. But then also from a Kenny standpoint, I don't know if he, like back in the day, flipped his commitment from Pitt to come to Notre Dame in 2025 and just be a package quarterback.
Right.
If for him, it needs to be like in the battle right now, it's not him fighting for a spot to have a special package on offense. It's to be the starter.
Right.
And so that's where I'm at with the whole, could there be a package? In theory, yeah, there could be, but I don't see the need.
I think the time is better spent just focusing on him, regardless of who's one and who's number two. Again, because of the fact that you don't have much experience, neither one of these guys has much experience. The time is better spent on just focusing on prepare like you're going to be in the game, no matter what, whether I'm one or number two, because you're always one snap away. And I think that's where the time is better spent for those guys personally.
Yep.
I don't mind a package, but again, I just really don't feel like it's that necessary. Who was a package quarterback when we first got to see him at Notre Dame is a guy named Tyler Buchner. And of course, Tyler Buchner was also a starting quarterback for a short amount of time in 2022, Marcus Freeman's first season. And then he transferred to Alabama, came back from Alabama, and now he's a walk-on wide receiver. But what about the possibility of moving Buchner back to quarterback since Steve Angeli is now gone from the room?
That's something we've discussed. We'll look at the total number of arms, bodies that we have to practice, but it is definitely under consideration to be able to move Tyler back into the quarterback room as we look into the summer and fall camp.
So there you go. It is something they are at least talking about. Trevor, are you in or out on moving Tyler Buchner back to quarterback?
I am in with some fine print in there. I'm in on it for the depth of the room, and I'm in on it for emergency situations. But if he is going to move back to the quarterback room, he has to understand it's not going to be to come in and compete to start at Notre Dame in the fall. I mean, Brian talked about it on a previous show. That ship has sailed, like that kind of was.
You're there for depth. That's
literally.
Right.
And if
another arm, another
yes
guy with ability who can help fill out that room.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, if, all of the quarterbacks on the roster, like if CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey and Blake Hebert all get hurt and just can't go, and you need somebody to come in and finish a game, Tyler Buchner can hop in there, run some read zone stuff, run some QB draw, QB counter, make a couple throws if he needs to get you out of that game. But he's not entering the quarterback room in the summer and the fall to go and compete to start.
Yeah, I realize, okay, you had Angeli, and if you kept Angeli, you would have 4 scholarship quarterbacks in the room, including Hebert, and then you would also have Rizak. But even losing Angeli right now, you've got 4 guys. Like, do you really need more than 4 guys in the room? It doesn't feel like it to me. So, like, if they lost one of these other guys, or if they, knock on wood, there was an injury, I think that it would make sense to move Tyler Buchner back into the room. But I guess you can also make the point, like, do you want to wait for an injury? Would you rather have him in there getting snaps ahead of time? It just doesn't feel to me like it's a necessity to move him right now. If you were one more guy down, I could see it, but it doesn't feel like you really need to right now.
No, I get that. I get where you're coming from. Some of it for me too is like letting him run like scout team quarterback for when they play Navy or when Marcel Reed comes,
which they did
like
last year. Still,
Yep. But some of it too is like I predict that Notre Dame is going to blow a lot of opponents out on their schedule this year. So younger players.
I predict you're right.
Man, I'm hoping so. And I could see Blake Hebert getting some minutes at the tail end of games, but I doubt they want to burn his red shirt. And so that's kind of. Moving Tyler Buchner back to quarterback is more of like your safety net for your safety net, and so it's one of those moves where I get it. I think it would be the right move, but I don't think it's a necessity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah. And that's kind of along the line, like I said, I don't think it's absolutely necessary right now. Again, like, because he's a walk-on, and he's playing wide receiver, it's like his main job last year was doing a lot of special team stuff. And I think, like, to me, the more intriguing, possibility for a guy like Tyler Buchner with the speed that he's got is like, could he be back there on kickoff return? Like as a deep man, you might have to put another 10 or so pounds on him, which you probably would want to do anyway if you're going to move him back to quarterback. But like, could he do that? Could he even return punts just because of what a great athlete he is? Like, it feels like there are other things you could do with a guy like Tyler Buchner, beyond just make that shift back to that room.
Sure. No, that's fair. I think Notre Dame is in a really weird spot to where if they wanted to build out more quarterback depth, they could get a guy who has a bowl win over an SEC team, has started for your school before, but you don't have to go to the portal to get him, but didn't play quarterback for you last year.
Exactly.
That's wild.
It's a very, very nice luxury, very nice option to have, that you could potentially do something like that. Sean Kelly is turning up the heat. Who's more of an ND guy, Angeli or Buchner? Fanning the flames.
I don't know, man. I kind of want to plead the fifth on this one.
I know. I feel like at this point, after the last week, really, especially, like, do we really want to go there? But Sean asked it, so I thought it was worthy of.
Yeah, I'll say this. They're both getting their degrees from Notre Dame.
True.
And they both, in some fashion, elected to leave Notre Dame at some point, and they both elected to go to Notre Dame at some point, with a lot of missing detail in between. But,
Buchner was willing to come back as a walk-on.
That's true. That's true.
So there is that. He just wanted to be back. Wanted to be back at Notre Dame. Realized how much he missed when he left. Christopher, no surprise, going the other way, saying it's Angeli. I mean, they both transferred at the end of the day as well, right? So, like, they both have that in common. We don't know what the end of Steve Angeli's story is going to be yet. Like, we're
Sure
closer.
don't.
We're closer to the end with Tyler Buchner. Came back, won a national championship with the lacrosse team, and made his way back to the football team. Contributor on a team that went to the national championship game last year. Like, to me, that's already whether like, he's more an ND guy than this guy is an ND guy. Like, what Tyler Buchner did and what he's done since he's come back, that's already a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's up for debate, and I remain to plead the fifth. I just like both of them.
You don't want to touch it at all, do you?
Nope. Nope.
All right. Trevor Trowbridge doing double duty today, slided on rapid fire, but I appreciate you coming in and doing the first part of the show today. Go get a nice snack, eat some dinner, whatever it is you do at this point.
You got it, man. Appreciate you having me on here.
Thanks, Trevor. Take care.
Yep. See you, man.
All right. So that is Trevor Trowbridge. And with that, I will now bring in Jesse Stiers to do a little rapid fires. Jesse is here. He is fired up. He is ready to go. And you know what that means? You know what I'm going to ask you? Are you ready for rapid fire?
2 days in a row. Let's take this show home with some rapid fire.
All right. We'll drive it down the stretch. We'll keep the quarterback talk going a little bit here at the start of rapid fire. Marcus Freeman asked at his press conference today what he saw in CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey that gives him confidence that he can start a quarterback that has at most 3 passes in a college game. And here's what he said.
There's a lot of things, decision making. Are you making the right decisions is probably the most important thing. Delivering the ball, the ability to create plays, maybe when things are breaking down, and taking care of the football. Like, those are things that we really, really evaluate, and they've done a tremendous job at doing that. You've heard me say this before. I try not to be so outcome driven. What's completion percentage? Because so many things go into that, right? But hey, are we making the right decisions? Are we making the right checks? Are we eliminating self-inflicted wounds? And ultimately, are we taking care of the football? And I thought all of our quarterbacks really did a good job at doing that.
So there it is. I mean, you hear what he says that he saw from these guys. Scale of 1 to 10. What's your concern, Jess, with starting a quarterback with no experience in a road game opener?
Yeah, scale of 1 to 10. I'm not really too worried about this. I'd give this a 3 out of 10. And the reason I say that is I'm always a proponent of, the young guy. My analogy for this would be like, say, that Duke held back Cooper Flagg because they didn't think he was ready. The guy reclassified and became basically a super freshman. I know it's a little bit harder in football, but CJ Carr has still had some time at Notre Dame. He's been a part of the team. He's been a part of the offense. He's been submersed in it. So talent is talent. When he gets out there and throws the ball, it's going to take care of itself. That's on the coaching staff to ultimately have him prepared.
This whole experience thing is just so overblown. I don't think maybe we've heard quite as much pushback on it since Steve Angeli entered the transfer portal, because it is what it is at this point. And, let's just be honest. If they didn't have the kind of confidence that they have in both of these guys, they would have tried to hold on to Steve Angeli, and Angeli would be on track to be the starting quarterback. And, it just goes back to this whole idea that, like, they would have started Steve Angeli in the opener, and then, because of his negligible experience that he has, negligible means a little bit of experience advantage that he has over these other 2 guys. Talent is talent. And, as Brian says, when it comes to coaching, either you have the chops or you don't. And I think it applies to these guys as well. Either they have the chops or they don't. And they're confident in these guys. The fact that they didn't have any more experience than what they did, and the fact that Marcus Freeman, Gino Guidugli, Mike Denbrock have the confidence in both of these guys and ultimately put them ahead of Steve Angeli, I think says a lot about them, a lot about both of them, both Carr and Minchey. And again, like you go back to the fact that once either Carr or Minchey, whoever wins the job, starts against Miami in the season opener, they're going to have as many career starts as Steve Angeli. So it's not like he's got so much more experience than either one of these guys. It was a little bit of experience. And ultimately, both of these guys have a lot more talent than Angeli. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the equation, I think the whole experience factor cancels out, like you said. Angeli has one more start than these guys, but the thing that tips this equation is the skill that you talked about, and that's obviously what Notre Dame is interested in. And to me, it's really no different than the Riley Leonard situation last year, because Riley Leonard, like CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey, is a tremendous athlete, in my opinion, and possesses a lot of good abilities and skills. But they basically gave Riley Leonard a crash course on the offense and got him to play quarterback within probably a shorter amount of time, considering the injuries that Riley Leonard had. And so,
yeah,
I know the counter argument to that would be, he played elsewhere and that sort of thing, but it was a new system. It was a complete overhaul. It was a new quarterback. And if you felt good about Riley Leonard last year, there's no reason not to feel good about CJ Carr this season. I guess is, I think, the way I'm trying to put it.
Yeah, I mean, to your point now, both of these guys, Carr and Minchey, have more experience under Mike Denbrock. They've got a full year now than what Riley Leonard had coming in the door when they were trying to learn each other and all that. So I think that both Denbrock, Guidugli, Freeman have a much better feel for both of these guys, having been able to watch them in practice, go through a full season with them, seeing the reps that they were getting, because, let's remember, like, even though you might only be getting a handful of snaps in practice over the course of the season, when Leonard is the number one and Angeli is the number two, they've still got film on these guys, and they're breaking them down and evaluating them and giving them feedback over the course of the season. So I'm not concerned about it at all. My concern level would be a 1 if I'm going 1 to 10. It is so slight that it barely hits a blip on the radar. So Freeman also said today that center Ashton Craig is expected to be able to go through summer conditioning with the Irish after missing all but the first 3 games of last season due to a torn ACL. Scale of 1 to 10, how big is that news?
That's 10 out of 10 big for me. That's your starting center. That's a guy that's got, a good amount of experience. To me, the center is the anchor of the offensive line. He's the commander of the offensive line. He touches the ball every play, just like the quarterback does. So, in terms of how important that is, I think not only having him at center is the best option, but it also, I think, allows you to let Charles Jagasaw, Emil Wagner, everyone else around them play in their position that is also going to maximize their potential across the offensive line as well. And so it starts with Ashton Craig. Having him at center allows you to have what I would consider the best offensive line unit when you're trying to piece together everything else. But it starts with him at center.
10 out of 10 for me as well. There's a reason that Pat Coogan hit the transfer portal after the season and headed down to Indiana. And it's because that he knew, and the coaching staff knew, that Ashton Craig was coming back. And when Craig did come back, he was going to be the number 1. And I mean, you've got now the possibility of having Ashton Craig and Charles Jagasaw and Emil Wagner and Billy Schrouth and potentially Anthony Knapp all on the same offensive line now as well. Like, think about that. We never got to see that unit together last year. And oh, by the way, you still have Gerby Lambert potentially waiting in the wings for when he gets healthy, because Freeman also said today that, the prognosis is a little bit longer for Lambert, but they do expect him to potentially be back by the time training camp starts after having the shoulder surgery for the labrum. So maybe he's battling for a job. Sullivan Absher, we talked about him, Vince and I, on the show earlier this week about, how he was backing up at center. So those are probably your top 7 offensive linemen right there. And having Craig back to anchor that offensive line with all those other guys around him is just literally and figuratively huge for Notre Dame. So a little bit more from Marcus Freeman today. The House settlement that continues to linger out there as we wait on that, still not finalized, but college football is getting closer to having a 105-man roster limit for the upcoming season. Freeman talked about how many scholarships the Irish will have if and when it gets to that 105-man roster limit.
Be able to, when we talk actual scholarship numbers, I think we're probably around 95 if it gets to the 105 limit. But if we need to find a way to make sure there's more guys that don't have to pay for school, we have a plan to do that too. But actual like scholarship numbers, right now the plan would be around 95.
So 95 for 105. You good with that number?
I think I'm good with that number. I think you'll probably know a little bit more. Like, I'm not too savvy about like where the roster has been, where it's been, what this ultimately means. But like, to me, it sounds good on paper. It looks good. I think having 95 scholarships makes sense. And then, basically the 10 walk-on spots after that is what I would imagine. So,
well, there are no more walk-ons though. That's
okay.
the thing. The walk-ons count against the 105. So the point being, so like the way I'm kind of looking at this is I'm doing the math. There's been an 85-man scholarship limit forever. Basically, you could have 85, not forever, but like 40 years, 35 years, something like that, whenever the 85-man, scholarship limits switched. So 85 on scholarship, and then obviously you could have however many walk-ons you wanted on top of that. And kind of where Notre Dame has been from a total roster number the last few years is like between 115 and 120, somewhere in there. So you've had 85 on scholarship, and then roughly 30 more walk-ons after that, 25 to 30 more walk-ons after that. So now if this 105-man limit comes through, that means that you can only have 105. You can't go past that number anymore. And all of those guys, all 105 are potential, like they've got to get some kind of scholarship money, basically. So kind of the way I'm looking at it, and this is the way it's been explained before. Now, this is, again, all still subject to change. The first 85 are still full scholarship guys, but guys number 86 through 105, you could give either partial or full scholarships to, depending on what you do. So if I'm looking, listening to what Marcus Freeman is saying, and you've got 95 total scholarships, that to me means that those last 20 guys, you could split up scholarships for those guys. You could give them 50% if you want. You could potentially give somebody 75% if you want, or obviously a full if you want. It's kind of like baseball has been with the 11.7 scholarships forever. They've had 11.7 full scholarships that you've had to split among like 30 to 35 guys, depending on how many you have on your roster. So that's kind of how I'm envisioning they would do it. Like they would give essentially partial scholarships to roster spots number 86 through 105. And then, as he said, there are some other things that they could do. And again, like baseball has had to be creative, and they've got, like academic money that they can give and different things like that. So like, it feels to me like that's probably the way this is going to be going here in the near future anyway.
Yeah, it sounds like you'll have your bank of full ride scholarships, your 4 and 5 star recruits. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
And you'll have your second bank of partial scholarships, and those are guys, not as high on the 4 or 5 star. But like you said, there's different ways, and especially at Notre Dame, where academics is considered so heavily. These guys can find different ways to get money elsewhere, and by the time it's all said and done, you can kind of package together, some sort of full scholarship. And that's the thing too, is like best case for Notre Dame is you get a 5-star who's like has a 4.0 GPA as well, because then he doesn't have to take the full on, full scholarship in football. He can make some of that up in some of the academic. Like when I was going to school, that was the way I had it. Like I packaged together like 3 or 4 different, funds of money, and it frees up more scholarships for everyone else. So I guess what I'm saying is the smarter you are, the more scholarships it frees up for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's paid for, right?
Yeah,
Like, and
doesn't matter where it's coming from.
yeah, and that's where potentially again they might have to work a little bit harder on the Notre Dame side, just to figure out, okay, because you've got to be academic qualifiers anyway. So I would imagine everyone's going to probably qualify. Most everyone is going to qualify for some kind of academic money. So there are just other options out there, and it's just a matter of, maybe you've got to be a little bit more creative getting it done, but they can fund, up to that 105 man limit. And I don't think anyone wants to have fewer than 105 on the roster if they can help it. Especially, I mean, like you look at how things went from an injury standpoint for Notre Dame this season. A lot of guys, came in handy. Yep, that's right. To get through a long season, that's for sure. Fill in the blank. The Rose Bowl will be a college football playoff quarterfinal game on New Year's Day at the end of this season. It's blank that after years of insisting on kicking off at 5 p.m. Eastern time, the Rose Bowl game will kick off at 4 o'clock Eastern time this year to allow the Sugar Bowl quarterfinal to start at 8 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah, to me, it simply boils down to just straight hypocrisy. That's what college football, I think, like you say you can't move the time, but now that it fits better for your schedule and you can start to make more money and it allows you to, a more advantageous slot or spot, I think that's ultimately what it's coming down to.
The sunset, Jesse. The sunset. We had to get this, you had to get that sunset on TV at halftime, and like the timing was always perfect. I mean, they finally came to their senses. I think it's like if the Sugar Bowl not the Sugar Bowl, if the Rose Bowl wanted to continue to be part of the rotation, there was going to have to be some compromise. I mean, people can still see the sunset. It'll just be an hour later, but it'll still occur during the broadcast. It's not the end of the world if we don't see the sunset, during the Rose Bowl. I think it's about time they did it. And I've actually seen some people who were upset that the Rose Bowl has actually had to do this, move their time up an hour earlier. It's like, it's 2025. Things are changing. It's not still 1925. The world doesn't stay the same. A century has passed by, and you've got to adjust with the times. And that's part of what the Rose Bowl ultimately had to do.
Those people would probably be friends with Andrew Kristofic, if I had to imagine. just people who don't like to see things change.
That's right. Andrew is pounding the table. No change. They should have kept it at 5 o'clock. Never change. I think Vince kind of is in that boat as well.
Oh, Vince and Andrew hang out together. They share a lot of the same ideology.
Yep. Andrew could easily take Vince to Primanti Brothers in Pittsburgh and make Vince very happy. Maybe that's where Jesse's going to be buying Vince and I dinner here sometime in the near future.
We don't got to keep talking about this. Speaking of changing things, I've been pitching my MLB extra innings idea to people, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on it. And I've been the last couple of days, I went to the Guardians and Yankees games down in Cleveland, and I've been just randomly kind of talking to some fans here and there, some coworkers, and I'm like, so what do we think of this idea? I think a lot of people are liking it.
Idea. What do you think about this? Oh yeah, I'd love that. How many brews in are they when you pitch them this idea?
Me, 0 brews. Them, I can't say how many they've had.
Okay. NFL draft, of course, starts Thursday, runs through Saturday. Over under 2.5 quarterbacks that get drafted in the first round Thursday night.
This is a sharp line. I think you can only say definitely one quarterback is going to get drafted. And what makes this 2.5 line so hard is it's so situational. Like the quarterbacks after that are only going to be situationally selected. And so like Cam Ward is going 1-1 overall. Like Tennessee is taking Cam Ward with the first pick. So
it's the only guarantee we've got is Cam Ward 1-1. That's right.
And so after that, let's kind of go down the thought process here. If there were two more quarterbacks that were going to be selected in the first round, you basically have Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, and
Right.
maybe Louisville quarterback Tyler. I can never say his name. Shuck. Those are the four. I mean, you could probably knock down Shuck, and it really becomes Sanders, Dart, and Milroe. And it's like, is New Orleans and the Steelers going to take a quarterback? That's who's ultimately going to drive this decision, in my opinion. I think that I think somehow the Steelers are going to end up with Shedeur Sanders. So that gives you two. I don't see Jackson Dart going in the first round, nor Jalen Milroe. And so, long story short, I have to take the under on this, but it's going to be really hairy. And you could like Shedeur Sanders might not even make it in the first round, you know?
Like, why do you keep calling him Sanders? And that's the thing. Like, Sanders, he is such a hot button right now in terms of what's going to happen with him. I just feel like there's no way he's getting past the Pittsburgh Steelers. We were talking about the Steelers quarterback situation yesterday with Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson as their two quarterbacks. I just can't see the Steelers letting him get by them. They sit there at 21. You know, there's talk that they could move up. There's just like so much talk about what could happen. Like, and then I'm sitting here and I'm watching ESPN and Peter Schrager, and he was like, the people he's been talking to as he's done his mock draft, he's hearing that the Giants could potentially trade up late in the first round with somebody and try to grab Jackson Dart. And it just feels like you're better off just waiting for the second round to come around than reaching up into the first round to get Jackson Dart. And by the way, I know we've got some Giants fans in here, Michael and Joseph are, you know, like first and foremost, the two that I think about. Like, if the Giants go for Jackson Dart in this draft, I'm like, have at it. Go for it, big boys. Knock yourselves out. But I'm with you. I'm going under. I think it's only going to be Hart and Sanders when it's all said and done.
If the Giants would be so stupid to take a quarterback, you just got Russell. Like, to me, acquiring Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston buys you another year or two on the drafting a quarterback clock. Like, let's just chill out on that for a little bit. Maybe stockpile some of the positions around. Let a veteran quarterback carry you through some seasons for a little bit. And then when you do go with a quarterback, you don't put him in a crappy situation like you did with Daniel Jones, with just bad all around, you know, bad offensive line, bad wide receivers, bad defense. Why don't you get stronger at some positions, buy some time with Russell Wilson and Jameis, and then come back to like this quarterback draft class isn't impressive either. So don't waste a first round pick on Jackson Dart. Like, I shouldn't even be giving this advice as an NFL East rival. Like, I should just be saying, go for it. Take Jackson Dart.
That's what I'm saying.
He's the best
if you want to. But if I'm the Giants, I'm not drafting a quarterback in the first round. I'm definitely not losing any draft picks to trade up into the first round to get Dart. I would wait for the second round is where I would get him, Milroe, anyone not named Ward or Sanders. I would not pick one in the first round. So, speaking of Sanders, Adam Schefter from ESPN says that short of Pittsburgh's Mike Tomlin, any other coach who drafts Shedeur Sanders better be comfortable within his organization, because if that team struggles and the fan base is calling for a coaching change, speculation is going to start to kick up about Deion Sanders taking his job. Are you buying or selling what Adam Schefter is saying about that?
I'm 100% buying this. If you're going to draft Shedeur Sanders, you need three things. You need a strong-skinned coach, you need a thick-skinned owner, and you need basically, you can't be a team that's in the middle of, you couldn't be like a Bears right now, like a team that is just cycling through, or a Jaguars or you know, the Panthers, teams that are constantly switching through coaches, ownership,
coaches and quarterbacks.
You can't. It's just not going to go well. And the reason why it would go well with Mike Tomlin and the Steelers is because that is a reputable organization. They've had like two coaches all time. They have an ownership that just, actually believes in their coaching, supports their coaching. It's just, as much as I dislike the Steelers, they're one of the best run organizations in all of football. Like the 49ers could probably get away with something like that. They're a really good run or well-run organization. The Dallas Cowboys would be the last place that you'd want him to go, because Jerry Jones would sell into the chat or into the talk as well. Like he'd be a part of it. You know what I mean? He'd be like, oh, that gets more views, more money. Let's talk about Shedeur Sanders some more. So yeah, what Schefter is saying completely makes sense. Like you have to have a very stable and thick-skinned coach and organization if you're going to draft Shedeur Sanders, because as soon as things go wrong, they're going to be calling for your job, and they're going to be saying, well, just bring Deion to town. You know,
That's exactly it.
He did it in Colorado. As whatever you want to say about Deion, he spun it around at Colorado, and he did it with his son at quarterback. There's proof in the pudding that he can get the job done.
And he's also the only coach that Shedeur has ever had. And so if you draft Shedeur and you're struggling, it's the logical leap to go, well, let's just bring in Deion. Things worked out when Deion was coaching him, and look at what he's done at Colorado and everything else. And yeah, it's like, the standard is the standard, Mike Tomlin, and you better have Teflon skin like Mike Tomlin, because the rest of these guys, like if you're the New York Jets, no. If you are, like go down the list. I think you said like the Jacksonville Jaguars. No. If you are Seattle, like not that Seattle's going to draft him. If you're New Orleans and you've got a first-time head coach, Kellen Moore, that is not a situation that I would want to put my first-time head coach, Kellen Moore, in. Not at all.
I wouldn't either. There's probably, like I said, maybe 4 or 5 spots that would make sense. And probably half of those teams don't need quarterbacks, because you know why?
Right.
They're a well-run organization.
Because they're well-run organizations. That's right. That's exactly right. So, yeah, I really do feel like Pittsburgh probably is the only organization that could really fully take that on. Maybe
it's a marriage of
Sean
both.
McVay would be, or like O'Connell, but neither one of them are probably, going to be looking for it.
Right. It's the perfect marriage of both. Who's a stable, strong organization, and who also needs a young, talented quarterback. The Steelers, and they're not getting Cam Ward. If they could take Cam Ward, they take Cam Ward.
Absolutely. All right. I couldn't get through the rapid fire the day before the NFL draft without a Cowboys question. So for all of you who, get mad when we talk Cowboys, this is the final question of the night. Just letting you know.
Off if you need to. Just
letting you know. Brian Baldinger says the Cowboys should trade up to the number 5 pick from number 12 by trading their 2nd and 5th round picks to get Ashton Jeanty. Do you buy or sell that idea?
100% buy. And I'll tell you, I'll give you like 3 strong reasons why. 1, Brian Baldinger is the man. I like, in terms of like NFL analyst, he is like on my top list of guy just knows football.
Straight shooting, no dope, Brian Baldinger.
All he does is watch film. And so like, I know what he's watching the Cowboys. And if he's saying the Cowboys need another Zeke type running back, then let's get this thing going. Right. And so number 2, I'm not keen on taking running backs in the first round unless it's a generational talent. Ezekiel Elliott was a generational talent. I see a lot of Ashton Jeanty and I see a lot of Ezekiel Elliott in Ashton Jeanty. And the next and most final point would be, when was Dak Prescott and the Cowboys really at their best? His rookie year, Zeke's rookie year, they had a strong running game. It took a lot of the pressure off of Dak. I know that a lot of people are going to come for Dak. He's not a top 5 quarterback in this league. He's still a good quarterback, but he needs some sort of help. He has proven that he can't be the guy to shoulder the entire load. He needs some sort of offensive help, whether that's a top-end running back, whether that's a complement to CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver. They need another explosive piece on this offense. And I think Ashton Jeanty is the next great – he could win Rookie of the Year wherever he goes, in my opinion. And so you combine those things, you get better on the offensive line. I think Dak and CD's game opens up a bit more because you're able to run the ball. I think all things start to function a lot better when you run the ball. And so why not get the best running back?
The Cowboys historically, when they have been an elite team, is when they have had that elite running game going. You can go all the way back, Dwayne Thomas to Tony Dorsett to Emmitt Smith, obviously. And then, you mentioned, Ezekiel Elliott, even though they weren't an elite organization, elite team, when they were playing their best, that's when the offensive line was still the offensive line down there. That's completely gone now. And Zeke Elliott is obviously completely gone, but that's when things have run the best. So, I mean, I agree with that aspect of it. It just feels like the Cowboys just always have so many needs in the draft that it's hard to also give up your picks. Pick. That's right. Like, I wouldn't mind giving up a second round pick next year, or even like a third next year, like something like that. It's hard to give up picks right now because they've always got so many needs that they've got to immediate needs that they've got to fill with the draft. They need a running back, they need a receiver, and they need an offensive lineman. And, like Peter Schrager, who again is using his sources to do his latest mock draft, he is mocking the offense, a guard from Alabama going to the Cowboys with the number 12 pick.
Right. I don't mind. I've always told you this. I have nothing wrong. I have in the first round, if nothing sexy is there, if Genty isn't there, if the Arizona wide receiver isn't there, you cannot go wrong with an offensive lineman. You can never go wrong with a top tier offensive lineman in the NFL. I know it's not the fans' favorite pick in the first round. I know it's not, super flashy, but it gets the job done. What did Jim Harbaugh do last year, baby? He took our boy Joe Alt. And look what happened. Justin Herbert didn't get hurt last year for the first time in 2 or 3 seasons. He actually played a full season. So with Dak getting older, with trying to take some responsibility off of him, let's protect him more. Let's give him more time in the pocket. I'm okay with that. I am too. Don't reach. Don't reach. That's all I care about. Don't reach.
I agree. It's not sexy, but it fills a huge need that they have. And I think Jerry Jones was kind of alluding to it earlier this week in that press conference that, it's kind of like a chicken or an egg kind of thing. Does the running back make, the thing go, or does the offensive line make the running back go? Now, you still need more talent in the running back room than what they've got. And so, like, if they go offensive line at number 12, that means you've got to take a running back with your second round pick. You can't wait.
But there's a deep running back class. So that wouldn't, you go, let's hypothetically, you get a good offensive lineman, you get that guard from Bama, and then you get maybe Judkins in round 2 or Trayvon Henderson, or there's a lot of good running backs in this draft to pick from. It's Ashton Genty, and if you don't get Ashton Genty, everyone else in that next tier is relatively the same.
So you like it? You like offensive line over either McMillan from Arizona, the wide receiver, or Golden, the receiver from Texas?
I think so. I really don't like taking those wide receivers early on. It's 50-50. I mean, they got CeeDee Lamb obviously worked out for them, but I mean, there's a lot of wide receivers taken in the first round over the last 5 years who just don't ever pan out. You have to hit on your first round pick. You have to.
Yeah.
You have, especially, and when you're the Dallas Cowboys, you absolutely have to, because you make no offseason transactions. It all comes down to the draft.
Yep.
And you have to hit on these early ones. And so if I would love if they did what they did last year, maybe they get to 12 and there's an offensive lineman they really like that they can get around pick 20. Maybe you trade back and pick up another second round pick and take an offensive lineman later on in the round. Yeah. I would be really happy with that.
Maybe the Steelers would like to trade with them.
Exactly. Yeah. Steelers trade up. They get Shador at 12. Cowboys fall back to 20, take an offensive lineman, and get, maybe probably another pick somewhere in the draft. Pick up an
extra pick somewhere. Yeah, I like that.
That's where I'm at. I don't want to go wide receiver early. I don't think those guys are studs like CeeDee Lamb.
I agree. Like, very rarely is a team a wide receiver away from being a contender. Right. You typically, if you're in that spot and you're picking high, you need a lot more than that. Historically, wide receivers drafted in the first round. Now, it's panned out a little bit better in recent years, but typically going that high on a wide receiver, it doesn't put you over the top and get you to the Super Bowl. Very few, like you can literally look over the last 25 years, small percentage of wide receivers drafted in the first round have ever even played in a Super Bowl, let alone won a Super Bowl with the team that drafted them. So I tend to shy away from that, even though it is obviously a much flashier type pick, and people get more excited about that. All right, we will wrap it up with that. Jesse, thanks as always. Thanks to Trevor earlier as well. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Appreciate you being here. Hit the like button if you would. Vince will be with me tomorrow, and so we will roll out the mailbag show since we didn't do a mailbag today, since we had a lot of Marcus Freeman comments from his press conference on the quarterbacks earlier today. Again, hit that like button, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.